Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Are you more reserved, quiet, independent, don't really need a lot of people in your life? Or are you loud, outgoing, and sociable and just love being around people? Maybe you're one of those lucky people and you're more kind of in between, so maybe more of an ambivert. Now, if you live in a westernized country like myself, you're going to know that society absolutely loves extroverts. There's just something about living here in America where if you're extroverted, it feels like people just like you more. And if you're introverted and you want to spend all your time alone and not go to parties or spend a lot of time with people, sometimes others will act like there's something wrong with you. Am I right? So it just feels like there's this expectation sometimes where if you're not extroverted enough, well, you're not as good as other people. But what does psychology have to say about this? Is it really true that it's so much better to be an extroverted person compared to an introverted person? And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So what exactly is extroversion? Well, extroversion is one of the big 5 personality traits, which is basically how personality psychology likes to think about personality. Now, the trait of extroversion is made up of 3 main facets, which you could just think of as qualities of extroversion. And these 3 qualities are sociability, which is just basically how social are you? How much do you like to spend time around people? How outgoing are you? How gregarious are you? How talkative are you? We also have assertiveness, which is just how much you put yourself out there, whether you know how to influence people, persuade people, take charge when you need to, stand up for yourself, etc., etc. And finally, we have energy level, which is how much stimulation you need from your environment, how active you are, how energetic you are, whether you like to search out excitement from things. So these are the 3 main qualities that make up the trait of extroversion. And if you really embody these types of things, then you are a more extroverted type of person. You are that outgoing person. You love to be around people. You probably have a lot of friends. You get your energy from interacting with other people and spending time with them, and you tend to be a natural leader. Now, if you're an introvert, well, that means that you don't really embody these qualities all that much. So you probably don't really need to be around people all that much. That's not to say, though, that you're antisocial. That's totally different. It's just that you don't need to be surrounding yourself with people all the time. You're actually pretty good at being by yourself. And you probably still have a couple of really close and intimate friends, but you don't have this huge social group. You may also not really feel the need to be in charge all the time. You may still be able to stick up for yourself when you need to, but you're okay not being the one who takes charge all the time and maybe being a little bit more in the background. And your energy level is also probably a lot lower. You don't need to feel this constant stimulation from the environment because you tend to become overstimulated when this happens. So if you are in the middle of a crowd, if you are the center of attention, if you're, let's say, at a big party and there's all these noises and lights and music, that's going to really overstimulate you. So you don't need all of this excitement to get your stimulation. Now, if you are an ambivert, what this means is that you are not really an extreme extrovert, nor are you an extreme introvert. You're kind of somewhere more in the middle, and most people are going to be at least somewhat ambiverted. And this is great because it means you kind of get the best of both worlds. Maybe you embody some qualities of an extrovert, but you also kind of have some introverted tendencies. So neither of these 2 labels would really fit you all that well. Now, when it comes to which is it better to be extroverted or is it better to be introverted? Well, we got to kind of look at the pros and cons here. Now, I'm not going to lie, being an extrovert is pretty awesome. There are a lot of benefits to being an extrovert. And really the big one here is that you like to be around people. And that's going to give you so many more opportunities because you're going to meet more people, you're going to socialize with more people, other people are going to be given more of a chance to get to know you and like you, and therefore you're going to get more social types of opportunities compared to an introvert. Because you have so many friends, this means that your social network is far greater. So you might know someone who knows the person that you want to know so that you can get further in whatever it is that you're doing with your life. And then you're able to just walk up to just about anybody and start a conversation with them, and it's not awkward. I mean, being an extrovert is pretty great. Extroverts are also more likely to be happier people because part of the trait of extroversion is that energy level. And that includes things like positive emotions. So if you are an extrovert, you're going to be more likely to feel those really great positive emotions like happiness, excitement, every day on a daily basis more often. Extroverts are also more likely to be natural leaders because assertiveness is part of the trait of extroversion. So it's going to be more part of your natural base instincts to be able to take charge, lead a group of people, talk to them, motivate them, get them excited to be able to do something. And that's going to be really great depending on what type of career you're in. Seriously, being an extrovert is amazing. It will open up so many doors for you because you're going to be way more likely to have the confidence and the natural ability to do things that an introvert might have to work harder at being able to do. And on top of all of this, if you are a well-spoken and ambitious person, there is nothing that you cannot do as an extrovert. So if you are an extrovert, please use your tendencies to your benefit. There is nothing that you can't do. And there are so many successful, famous people throughout history that have been extroverts. For example, Martin Luther King Jr. was an extrovert. Also Muhammad Ali and Winston Churchill. All of these big names that you probably recognize, these people were extroverts. And they used their extroverted tendencies to their benefit. Now, it wouldn't be fair if I only talked about all the great things about being an extrovert. There's also a couple of downsides. If you are an extrovert, this means that you naturally need to be around people more compared to an introvert, and that's not always going to be convenient. There are times in life where we have to know how to work on our own, or we have to go through long periods of time where maybe we don't get to socialize with people, so that can be really tough for someone who is very extroverted. Being very extroverted can also make you sometimes seem maybe like you're just too talkative or too outgoing. And depending on the type of person that you're interacting with, well, this may be seen as annoying to some people. And if you are just a super extroverted, assertive person, and you love to take charge, and you're just a really dominant person, this can mean that sometimes you miss other people's good ideas because you're talking so much and you're putting your own ideas out there so much that maybe a less extroverted person just cannot get their ideas in edgewise. So this might also sometimes rub people the wrong way, and then you also miss other people's good ideas in the process. So being an extrovert is really great, but there's a couple downsides along with that. Now, what about introversion? I mean, extroversion is a really great, awesome trait, but what about introversion? So being an introvert is great too, you guys. I'm an introvert, so obviously I am qualified to tell you this. So if you are an introvert, this means that you know how to spend time by yourself. So if you have to work by yourself for a long period of time, and let's say you go days without socializing, while this would really start to wear on an extroverted person, for an introvert, they would likely be just fine. Like they might make like a phone call or something in the middle of that period just to get a little bit of socializing in. But apart from that, they're going to be completely fine mentally. And the introvert doesn't really need a ton of friends to be happy. Yes, they still need close social relationships, but they're okay not having this huge social network. And the relationships that the introvert has, they value and they build. And those relationships might be even stronger compared to the many, many relationships that the extrovert has. Another benefit of being an introvert is that because you're not so talkative and you're not so outgoing, you're going to be more likely to hear other people's ideas. You're going to be better at listening and then responding to people as a result. You're not always the one who has to be talking or giving your own ideas. You're also probably more reserved and careful with the information that you give. So you're not just going to say everything that's on your mind necessarily. You're going to be careful with the information that you share. And the introvert also knows that they do not always have to be the one in charge to make a difference. You are okay letting other people kind of take charge and be responsible for things, and you know that you can still have an impact. So while the benefits of being an introvert might not be as out there and as obvious as the benefits of being an extrovert, introverts have this very quiet kind of power. And introverted people do change the world. There are many instances of successful, famous individuals who are introverted. For example, we have the very famous Warren Buffett. He is absolutely an introvert. We also have Einstein. Maybe you've heard of him. And then also Gandhi, who was very famous for the quote, "In a gentle way you can shake the world." So these are some great examples of very successful introverted people. But of course, there are some downsides to being introverted. If you are extremely introverted and you just don't really like to interact with people all that much, if this is taken to the extreme, it can make you seem kind of withdrawn and very aloof and even unlikable. Another downside is that people might mistake you for being antisocial and shy, even though these qualities are not really a part of introversion. They're much better explained through the trait of neuroticism. It's a very common assumption that people have. And because you're not interacting with as many people, you're just not as social, you may not get as many natural opportunities compared to somebody who is always interacting with people, who has this huge social network. But what about being an ambivert? Because in all honesty, I would say as a personality psychologist that most people are ambiverted, at least somewhat. And when you're an ambivert, it's pretty freaking awesome too, because you have the best of both worlds. You have some extroverted traits, but you also have some introverted traits, meaning that you're not necessarily going to experience some of the downsides that a very extroverted person or a very introverted person might have. And there are also so many ways to be an ambivert. So you can have, let's say, 10 ambiverted people and they all look different. So you could be a very quiet, maybe low energy type of person, but you know how to take charge. You're also very assertive. You can get things done. You're a natural leader. You know how to talk to people. Another ambivert might be a very outgoing, happy kind of person, very energetic, just wonderful to be around, but they don't have this very high social need compared to an extrovert. So there's all these different ways to be ambiverted. So to wrap up this video, which is best, being extroverted or being introverted? Well, the answer is that it depends. It depends on the situation that you're in. Society might be telling you that, hey, you should be extroverted, but actually it's more complicated than that. Both introverts and extroverts can have the upper hand just depending on what the situation is. So if you are in a situation where there's a lot of people around and you really have to push and be assertive and loud to get your point across, and that's what's expected, well, obviously the extrovert's going to do better. But if you are in a situation where you have to be very independent, where you have to be very solitary and maybe just settle down and kind of listen to what other people are saying and be more reserved, well, the introvert is going to do better. And this is why it's really great that we have both types of people in our society, as well as ambiverts, because it just creates a more balanced kind of environment. So if I absolutely had to pick which is better, I'm going to pick the ambivert because they have really great qualities of both the introvert and the extrovert. They're not falling prey to some of the more extreme tendencies of either side. But you can definitely be successful as either an introvert or an extrovert, like I've mentioned. So let me know in the comments down below if you think that you are more introverted or more extroverted, or maybe you are one of those lucky people and you're somewhere in between. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. It helps support my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.